It's the Oregon Trail.
Well, like, did the Oregon Trail go into Nevada? Because I can feel like there could be like a Nevada, Oregon type deal. But like, I don't know.
You know, it never really occurred to me that it was an actual trail.
You just thought it was a game? They just picked a state?
No, I mean, I didn't think that far. So.
Were you good at Oregon Trail?
No.
Can I just say something about that game? Overrated. I mean, honestly, everyone.
I think a lot of the time it was just the game that we had. So it was less about that game itself being good and more about we don't have anything else. Here,
that pinball game, that little space pinball game, that was the business. That game was outstanding. What you got here?
Okay, so I just want to point out Nevada's way over here.
Okay, look, it's not exactly, they could have slipped through there. Just go south of the Snake River.
Doesn't it actually seem like it would have been way easier to just go like way down here? Oh wait, is this where Death Valley is?
Well, I think Death Valley is a little further west.
Right here?
Wow, the Rocky Mountains really were a problem for people.
I mean, I don't know why they didn't just like go home. Like, go home.
We're going through the plains and all of a sudden it's like these giant mountains. It's like, nah, we're good.
I'm good. That is fine. I will be a second-class citizen in Chicago. Thank you very much. I do not need gold.
Gold in them hills.
I don't know.
Give me that pinball game over any kind of Oregon Trail game.
I don't know what you mean, that pinball game.
It was just pre-installed on the Windows operating system. That pin was like a space pinball game. It was outstanding. You didn't need any other video games.
Minesweeper?
I was never good at it.
Yeah, but nobody's good at Minesweeper. I think because I was a child, I think there was definitely an experience issue. But I think even if I had been an adult, like Minesweeper is hard. I want to see if my computer has it right now.
An experience issue?
Yeah, like I didn't have enough. Oh no, Minecraft came out.
What, you didn't go to the draft?
Minecraft on my computer?
Here's the thing about Minesweeper. Put the rules up. Put the rules up so we can know how to play the game. You have to dig for the rules. It was just like you opened it and the game started. And it was like, what sense does that make at all?
I mean, it just depends on how you learn. But my understanding of it is you click on a thing, it gives you a number. And so you know that, nope, no. We should start the show.
Fraudulent.
We should start the show, though.
Well, then split the difference. I'm Alan.
Whitney.
Episode 0043, Whitney.
Mm-hmm. Which would be, just give me some James Bond reference, trivia, something.
Well, I was prepared today, and I'm really sad to talk about this, but No Time to Die, the upcoming James Bond movie, has been delayed again to April 2021.
My condolences.
But it's good because people won't go to the theater and die watching it. And so you won't have to give more condolences, except for maybe if you're in the US, in which they may be like, sure, just go to any theater. So.
Yeah. What would it take for you to go to a movie theater right now? Like, what would you need to see?
No one else in the movie theater with me?
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I know that they space out folks, but I'm sorry. Anyone with the concession in there, masks are coming off. So what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm also just really present to like, after 2 hours, is your mask really doing that much good?
Especially if your breath stinks, you know, you can. It's a negative feedback around a negative environment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I am usually bringing multiple masks with me when I go places. So like when I do my coaching for lacrosse, like halfway through my practice, I switch masks out.
When you need to yell?
Yeah.
Do you pull the mask down to yell, or do you yell with the mask up?
It depends on how close I am to the kids.
Okay.
Like if we're like in a huddle situation, which is so stupid. I don't even know why we're in a huddle situation so these kids can breathe in each other's faces.
I blame the coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to them through the mask for sure. But usually my instinct is just like taking a step back from them. And yeah, I usually do yell, pull it down, give one of those.
What are you drinking tonight?
This is Espolòn tequila the ice has melted, so it won't make any noise.
A heady play.
You know.
We're talking crime tonight. We're talking about possible positive incarceration.
I mean, there's room for everything.
But not too much room, given the topic.
You want to be confined.
You want to be just lock it up, Caps. Lock it up.
We'll get to it, guys.
And we're going to be talking about giant holes above the sky. Well, I guess in the sky. And
Moose is talking about.
Very unhappy. Moose is very unhappy.
I'm just going to pause it.
Are you sure? Keep it running. Keep it running.
Well, he's just going to keep doing that.
Yeah, that's fine. Whitney, before we get into the show, I want you to rank something, but in the spirit of gimmicks, I'm going to let you choose what you're going to rank. You either have the option of parks or pageantry. Now, I want to warn you that those words are very broadly defined, and what you're ranking is going to be something that you may find to be actually
pageantry,
not related. Pageantry. All right. Whitney Caps, the VP debate was on Wednesday night, and it took place in Salt Lake City. I want you to rank the ideal places to be of the 3 presidential debates and the 1 vice presidential debate in terms of places you most want to listen to 2 people talk that aren't going to answer questions. And I'm going to give you 4 options.
Okay.
Cleveland.
Okay.
Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Miami. Nashville. Okay. Start at the bottom from a place you would least want to be to listen to
Cleveland.
2 people talk that won't.
Sorry, Mike.
Land?
I'm so
Wow.
sorry, Mike.
Wow.
Cleveland.
Okay.
I don't want to stay in the Midwest. Second, I mean, I guess is Nashville. I don't know a lot about Nashville. I'm gonna be real honest.
Live music capital of America.
I have heard good things, and I don't know. I might like it, but I don't. I feel like that's not where I want to listen to 2 people not answer questions.
There it is.
And then I'm gonna go Miami.
Okay.
Because I feel like even if I have to listen to a bunch of people be silly, I can have a drink while I do it. And, maybe I can enjoy some sunshine. I don't really know anything about Miami. I've been there once, and it was for like 36 hours. And I was working the whole time. So I'm not quite sure that I really got like the full impression. But, maybe they'll feed me some Cuban food at the same time. Good. I'm fine with that. Ropa Vieja, I'll listen. It's fine. And then I would say Salt Lake City #1 because I actually really like Utah. I think people sleep on it. There's some beautiful, beautiful world out there, and Utah's kind of up there. So as long as I could do it outside, yeah, I'll go to Utah. I'll hang out there.
Utah, as some people pronounce it. Utah. You're going to find
did I
Dr.
get it
R.
right?
Loveless in Utah.
Did I get it right?
No, I don't think so. I actually went in a different direction. I put Miami last.
Okay. Is it because you don't like fun?
No, I love fun, but here's the thing. I'm going to listen to 2 people talk without answering questions. I mean, I don't want to be tempted. I'm going to be more disappointed knowing that the beaches, the warm weather.
No, you get to do it while, I mean, I'm assuming it's a whole deal. You go and sit for 2 hours and listen, and then you go to the beach.
No deal. You're adding terms. I didn't have those terms. Miami's going to be last. I'm going to go with Salt Lake City. I'm going to go with Cleveland second, and then Nashville. I've never been to Nashville, but I imagine
put that one #1.
It'd be a different place, I mean, what do you want from me?
Tweet at Allen, everybody, because that was ridiculous.
It was a little disappointing. Caps, just to let you know, if you chose the park option, I would have had you rank the 4 different types of parking styles. So
you know what? I probably would have preferred that.
Yeah.
I assumed that what you were going to make me rank was like ballparks or something, and I was not interested.
Gonna just file this away. I mean, it's Major League Baseball playoffs.
Not interested.
What is interesting to you and many other people, our first topic today, American Murder, The Family Next Door.
Yeah.
It's a new show on Netflix. It's got a lot of attention, and it's part of this growing space of the true crime empire that's out there.
That's true.
I have no knowledge about this. I'm very limited about this. And so we're going to have this be an explainer that Whitney will lead today on true crime and the show.
Yes. So it's not a show. I do have to make a quick edit.
Help me out.
It is a feature film, feature length documentary. And I normally don't get excited about like, oh my gosh, something is coming out on Netflix, because like, what? But I saw a preview for this and I was like, oh man, I am gonna watch the shit out of this, because I am really into true crime. I'm into true crime. I'm also into like creepy, scary stories. Oh. I'm into anything. Twilight Zone, please, my shit right there. I'm into anything that's kind of like creepy and serves my need to like see bad things in the world, which seems really odd as I say that sentence out loud. So this American Crime is the story of Christopher Watts and Shanann Watts. Shanann was a housewife, mother of 2.5. She was pregnant with a little boy, and she just goes missing one day. And her friend reports that she's gone. And then the film sort of picks up the story from there. And it is really exceptionally done. And this is why I'm actually much more, I think, involved in this than I probably would have been otherwise. But the entire movie is 3 different pieces of media. It is body cam and interrogation camera stuff that came directly from law enforcement. It is all of Shanann, so the wife, the victim, all of her social media posts. And then the third piece is their text messages with them, with each other, and then with other people. And what this story really shows is sort of this very, very real, very emotional decline of a relationship, to the point where this person, who Chris Watts clearly had no empathy or compassion for his wife at all, to do what he did to her and to their children. It's just startlingly real, because all of it is just, it's the footage of what was happening then and before then, like what was leading up to it, what happened after she went missing. It's pretty incredible just as a documentary in terms of just how it was made. But I think for people who are super, super into true crime, it's like a really, really great little bite.
What is it? And I don't like being afraid. So I know it's October. Like, I don't like horror movies. Boo. I don't like to be, don't do that. It makes me nervy. What is it about being immersed in tragedy?
Yeah.
And not just like sad. I mean, this is sad, but like a gruesome level of tragedy that is so appealing to you and clearly millions of people that watch this and consume true crime.
Yeah, I think it's very similar as like, why do people watch... Hold on. Dog, come here. It's not the thing. I don't know what... They usually text when they're on their way. Hi, I don't care. I don't care what you want.
Did you start a clock?
What?
Did you start a clock?
I did not. Okay. I did not. Okay. So the reasons why I particularly am interested in it, I think it's probably the same as why other people are interested in it. But I think it's the same reason why people watch like the nightly news when it's all bad news. Like, you watch your local news, and do you remember the Jake Gyllenhaal movie Nightcrawler?
I love that movie.
I mean, it's not that dissimilar to what you see if you look at a local news show. I mean, it's like the 10 o'clock news is all, like this murder happened down the street and this thing and whatever. And so there is a need, I think, to supplement that when I'm not watching the nightly news every day. That's a bit more cynical, I think. I think that at our core, you know, human beings are really disconnected from blood and gore in a way that we have never been ever in our history. And I mean, I'm talking about it as sort of like even the smallest bit of like when someone dies in your family, like it's so sanitized that when you look at that person in the coffin, like they don't even look like the person that you remember in life. And so there's such a disconnect, I think, between us and death in general, or us and in tragedy or gore or, you know, anything like that, that I think it's really natural for us to be curious about this, because it's been such a huge part of the human story up through, I don't know, maybe like the turn of the 20th century. I think that was when people started sort of getting, I guess, the Civil War in the United States was sort of like the big time when embalming became a thing, and then funerals really switched. And it wasn't like, oh, okay, my husband gets run over by a bunch of horses and it's my job to clean and dress his body, bruised and bloodied and all that kind of stuff. Like that would be normal. And so I don't know. I think there's part of it that's that. I also think the people who tend to be really excited about true crime are often women, and often white and or privileged women, although I know plenty of women of color who are really interested in it. But I do think there is an element to which it's about like a taboo thing. Like we're supposed to be scared. We're supposed to be so chaste. We're supposed to be protected. And I think there is something that's like a little bit like a perversion of what's expected, to be into something that's gross and into something that's like totally disconnected from our day-to-day lives. I mean, I'll say just in general, it's like, I don't really have a lot to worry about, like ever really. And so there is a piece of me, I think, that's just like, I don't know. Like I want to peer into something that's like really fucked up. Don't you ever want to do that?
No, I spend enough time with politics, as Moose is also concerned there with politics. I think one of the, so let me go back specifically to this story in this movie before I go big picture, because I think what you said I want to pick up on.
Yeah.
But the person who, the husband, Chris Watts, or is that the name? Killed the wife and the kids, and he confessed, right?
He did.
Was there something that was gained? Like, do we know why he did this? Like I guess that's the piece of, we know how it ends when we go into it, but what did we get by peering into these folks' lives and ultimately the end of life?
Yeah, I think the easy question for that, and I think it's also part of the allure of true crime in general, is that there's something lurking just below the surface. Like, there was no reason to believe from his text messages or how he behaved. There was no reason to believe that he was capable of this, even though statistically the biggest threat to middle-class women is their husbands. I'm sorry, behind like heart disease and cancer and now coronavirus, right? But I think there is something about how utterly boring these people were, and how completely he had sort of put on a facade, perhaps, of being sort of the loving husband, and really he was always this person underneath. Or, I mean, how quickly the loving husband can become this callous killer. And he I mean, spoilers, guys. I mean, everybody
Major
knows.
Spoilers.
Everybody knows the story. If you're into true crime and you were going to see this, then you already know what to say. But he was, he had an affair. He had a young mistress that he was lying to, and he just sort of figured that if he sort of hit the reset button on his family, got rid of family number one, he could sort of get the ball rolling on family number two. And I don't exactly think that this was a logical decision, but it is clear that it was premeditated, that he put some planning into it. And that is often the case with stories like this. So, I mean, it's, in terms of what's gained, I don't know. I think you could watch 100 of these documentaries and still be fascinated if you're the type of person that's fascinated by these things. but I think this particular story captured the minds of people because she was such a public figure too. So she worked in like multi-level marketing. She's quite successful. And her online presence was huge, and the online presence of the kids was huge. And so there was this sort of community of people that knew who she was, that had seen her posts. She had lupus, so she was very active in that as well, just sort of like educating people on the condition and helping those that were afflicted kind of try to find some homeostasis like she did. And, you know, by all accounts, like super basic, loving, fine suburban family, like not people that I would necessarily want to know, but if you pass them, you know, on the street, you wouldn't think twice about like what this couple looked like. They were utterly forgettable. I think that there's something that's very, very alluring and very creepy about that.
I was just making a separate list of kind of shows. I know this is a movie, but First 48, Snap, Cold Case Files, Forensic Files. Like, there is an audience for this type of entertainment, as well as
remember like
fiction.
2020 on Friday nights when we were growing up? Like, it was always somebody got their head cut off, or, you know, some suburban mom. And it feeds into these narratives that we have now coming from the Republican Party that's like, they're coming for you in the suburbs and da-da-da-da, when really it's like, no, again, statistically, the killer's already in the house. You know what I'm saying? And so but it really does feed into this narrative that like, we should be scared all the time, regardless of how much privilege we have, regardless of that suburban moms in $1 million homes are just as at risk as, you know, people who are, you know, having to cross gang violence every day to go to school, which of course is bullshit, but that's the narrative that I think people latch onto so much. But I think true crime in general has been getting more diverse, and I think has been getting more conscious about the ways in which that narrative is fucking terrible, and that there are tons of victims who aren't seen as this sort of perfect princess like Shanann Watts was, that don't get the attention they deserve. And when cases don't get attention, often they don't get solved. I mean, we forget that like prosecutors and sheriff's offices respond to public pressure, which they do have to. And so you actually see there are a number of true crime podcasts that have become really, really popular. Some of them have a more comedic bend to them. My Favorite Murder is an example. It's the two women who are, and they're, you know, middle-class white women who are the hosts, really make a point to call out the shitty practices of DAs and sheriff's offices, and racist practices here and racist practices of the media. And, you know, and of course there's more to be done, but they do a lot to make sure that that all victims are treated with the same amount of respect and urgency when it comes to like really seeing justice served. So it is an interesting evolution when I think of, to your point, things like the First 48 and, you know, 2020 and Dateline, like those shows that we kind of grew up with, to sort of how sophisticated things are about it now.
I have so many questions.
Please.
I guess I have two. So before we close,
let's do it.
One is, and you touched on this a lot, and I want you to kind of continue talking about it, which is the stereotyping that kind of comes out of shows like this. The idea of not just like, you know, you're under constant fear of an outsider when, you know, the primary threat is the person that you live with, the person you live with, or that shares your block,
or like people who are in
like
your
that.
family. Like you're much more likely to be killed by someone in your own community.
Yeah, but you know, there's ideas of, you know, the perfect suburban, oftentimes white, like you said, middle to upper class,
2.5 children,
family, exactly. And the stereotype of, in terms of possibly for viewers, everyone's putting on a front. It's not just there's a killer that may be under the surface, but none of this perfection is what it seems.
Yeah.
What other, or does it concern you at all, the stereotypes that come out, because they are played upon for politics, they are played upon for entertainment purposes, but they seem to be there's a misalignment between who we're told to be afraid of, or frankly, who people are fearing.
Yeah.
And who actually, statistically, as you brought up, are the folks that may be bringing the most harm to people. Where's that disconnect?
So I think there is a bit of a disconnect, but I also think part of that is generational. Like I think about people who are my age and younger, and I know a couple of people in real life who are big true crime fans who I kind of geek out with it. Again, middle-class white women, who are much more conscious of what they are consuming. It doesn't mean that narrative still isn't there. I mean, like, right, we live in a white supremacist country, so therefore white supremacy like sneaks into everything, including true crime, which is really a weird thing to be thinking about. But I do think that the awareness that it's part of the narrative, that it's, as much as you may be asking the right questions, it's still that filter will still be on a lot of this too. And so the only way to actually counteract that is to actively seek stories that tell a more true perspective of the world, which is that often people of color, especially women of color, are often targets because of the exact thing that we're talking about, which is that police departments, media, DA's offices, they see those kinds of victims as inherently less bankable, as less exciting, because people don't get as excited about them. Like people aren't as concerned. And so you hear about like, an example that comes to mind for me is there's a stretch in Canada along the sort of western border where a lot of Indigenous women have gone missing. And they know that there's at least one serial killer that is active in that area, but it's really hard to push the resources towards these marginalized communities because there just isn't the same outcry. And so I think what we see is true crime actually can become the venue for people to be educated and then take action about these things. Like, and it might sound very silly, but like a lot of cold cases have actually been solved by people who were just like really, really interested in this stuff and wanted to see justice for certain victims whose stories that they had heard about. And so I think there's a wide potential here for that narrative to change. And I think, again, a conscious consumer of true crime, I think really, really understands that. I don't think it's the same narrative that we probably had with 2020 on Friday nights, which was everyone be afraid of everyone. Oh my God. I think true crime right now is a lot more focused on telling stories and getting people to realize that they can impact what happens in their own communities. And that doesn't mean they can go stop serial killers. I think what it means is like they can be more open and more aware and more supportive of people who might need their help. And if those people are already dead, they still, I think, are taking a lot of action for that. There's a lot more attention being paid to certain stories that maybe didn't get a lot of attention the first time around. I'm thinking of, and I can't remember the man's name, but there was a young man who was found wrapped up in a wrestling mat. I say man, he was a boy. He was like, 15 or 16 or something. And he was found wrapped up in a wrestling mat. And the story that the school told was he climbed in there and got stuck and suffocated. But there were so many pieces of evidence that were like, no, he didn't. And I know I'm not going to go into the details and stuff on that, but a true crime podcast that I listened to called Crime Junkie did a big story about that. And they actually encouraged people to reach out to that DA's office and say, you need to reopen this case. This is not solved. There is more here. And I can't remember if action actually got taken on it or not, because I don't know that that's always the point. But I think getting people mobilized to understand they have a say in this. Like, these people work for you. So if you see that they're not allocating resources appropriately, it is your job to say something. And I think that's sort of like the higher aims of the current true crime wave. I don't know that we always get there. Sometimes it's just really creepy, and I don't know.
The last question, and it actually serves maybe as a nice transition to the next topic, is technology. The part of it seems like what made this movie, this documentary, so incredible is the raw data, the body cam footage. You said the text messages earlier.
Yeah.
How does this hopefully we don't meet a grisly end, but how do you think about the amount of access people could have to your life, both as you're living it, but also if you're in a situation whether you're incapacitated or dead, that people can have access to so much
Yeah.
of your lived experiences that you probably didn't intend for anyone to have access to, let alone, you know, a documentary to be made for millions of people to have access to.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because Shanann Watts, again, the victim in this case, her very active social media page has now become a memorial page, which isn't, I actually didn't realize that was a thing, but of course it makes sense. If someone has a social media page and they pass away, that page doesn't just go dark. I mean, I imagine the family can petition for that, and it can, but I think in a lot of ways that digital reminder of someone can serve a lot of different purposes. I think it can also serve the purpose of like victim shaming and, you know, all kinds of crazy things. Because of course, any story like this becomes public, you're going to get all kinds of reactions. But I'm sure that for her family, they have chosen to keep it as a memorial page because it serves some sort of positive purpose for them. But yeah, it's really interesting in this movie. And of course, like, anybody watching it knows what happened. So there's no big reveal. And, you know, to your point, like, he confesses, he really doesn't fight it. He doesn't even ask for a lawyer. It's a little bit crazy because you watch the officer meet him at the home, and you watch this man try to talk about what's happening and try to put on a face and try to, and the officer has to know that statistically speaking, this is their most likely suspect without knowing anything else about the case. And so the rawness, the realness of it is, I think, part of what to me makes it a really compelling true crime documentary. But there are definitely ways that I think technology helps in these situations, and there are certainly ways that it hurts. I mean, they had a really good amount of evidence on him, like the neighbor's Ring camera outside caught him loading his truck inside. I mean, there were just all kinds of things there was so much evidence against him. And I don't think they needed any of that, but it really does make you think, like, to what degree is technology supporting really getting justice for victims now? And I mean, you hear a lot about the Golden State Killer is another like really, really big story that broke, I don't know, maybe last year or something, when they actually caught the guy that did it. And it's, you know, that's the advent of new technology that could, you know, look at different patterns or look at different pieces of evidence with more scrutiny than they had before. And so there is just something about it that's really compelling to people. I think it's hard to put a finger on, but yeah, technology will continue to play a huge, huge role in probably creating, but also solving a lot of these situations.
Fascinating. And actually, this weekend,
You're not going to watch it, are you?
Wow. As I was preparing to say that I would give it a watch this weekend.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, as far as these kinds of documentaries go, and there's some good ones and there's weird ones. There's people who have different niche topics that they like. Like, some people really dig cult stories. Some people really dig serial killers. Some people dig women killers. So there's something for everyone.
Speaking of something for everyone and how technology could be used for better or worse. Whitney, I don't know how much you know about chastity cages.
I mean, so much. I know that the history of chastity cages goes back to the 1400s, and I had more, but then I got distracted.
Well, listen, that tends to happen.
I know they were in the Mel Brooks movie, Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yes.
That's all I know.
The boundaries of pleasure and pain, but also technology, I think all coalesce on one story, which is about I think it's the Kiwi, I don't know, cellmate chastity cage. And and here's the thing: people listening and watching, you know, you're gonna believe, what's that? We know that people are into this type of thing. No shaming here on Split the Difference.
No, we are not trying to kink shame, as long as everyone's gotten their permission slip signed by a parent.
And you're using safe devices. This is a chastity cage, which is used to restrict the movement of the penis for penis havers. And it's oftentimes used in a BDSM type relationship. But with the use of technology, you think I can keep my partner in a chastity from miles away, except for when it's hackable, Whitney Caps. And that's some of the concern here with this.
No, are you kidding me?
This is one of the concerns about the cellmate chastity cage, that the idea is that it can be hacked, and so you wouldn't need a password.
Will you show me this? Will you show me what this is? I don't want to see a person in it. I don't want to see it being worn. I just want to see like what we're talking, because the image that comes to mind when you say chastity belt is
it's a little cage. You can see how it would work. You would
wait. So so that part there goes like under. Where do the balls go? The balls go inside this little loop.
I think so. Here, if I can, let me just draw it up here. I wish I had a telestrator. So I think you're gonna go and up and under here. So you kind of go in, and then this part closes down onto the penis here.
And then this hinge is what becomes locked.
Yes, I do believe that's correct.
Oh my.
Dare I say locked and not loaded for action.
Do they have different sizes?
Well,
do they have different colors? This is ugly. This is really ugly. I would not want this on my penis.
In general, I think chastities come in many different colors and sizes and shapes. But the idea is that you need to restrict movement.
Okay.
Whitney, though, like I said, there's a concern out there, though, that the technology can be hacked, that a bad actor can come in and take control of this device, that they wouldn't need a password, and that a penis haver and a wearer of this would be locked in. And it would lead to all sorts of embarrassing, maybe trips to the ER, and frankly, needing circular saws to cut this thing off.
I mean, the jaws of life, come on. Like literal life, the balls are at stake. So I'm actually really curious, like what would be the benefit of this as opposed to just like something with a key? Like why does it need to be an app? Because there are so many things that are apps now, and I'm like, why is this an app? My toothbrush?
That's kind of
as ridiculous. An app. What do I need an app for?
You gotta track everything.
Another thing telling me that my dental hygiene is not, it's only 75%.
The humble brag is strong in you. I think the idea is that
75% I feel like is not good for teeth.
I mean, have you walked around this country at all?
I'm gonna keep these.
Look
this isn't Britain.
What a shot at our listeners across the pond.
Right?
Should have won the war back in the day, am I right?
Honestly, if they didn't want me to call them assholes with stupid teeth, you should have locked this down.
A chastity for the mouth. Here's the thing. I think the idea is that you want more and different options for pleasure. And so with the lock and key, there's some degree of I need to be somewhat close to you and physically nearby.
Oh, okay.
Whereas with many apps these days, and I should say you see this with vibrators, you see this with kind of other types of devices, there is something alluring about the idea of a partner not being physically near you, but still having some degree of power over you.
I get that.
And that can be extended instead of, say, from one room to the next. It could be from one part of the city to the next or across state.
Oh my God, can you imagine? You're like wearing your cellmate cock jail, and then you're like just walking to the supermarket, and then all of a sudden, well, yeah. So wait, what does it do? So it's just a locking, unlocking mechanism. Because with a vibrator, there would be like a sensation.
Yes.
So does this thing have a vibrator as well?
I don't think it does, but I think I think the idea would be that you would be able to engage it and then tease the partner, and there would be pain associated with the erection. I do believe that's how it works.
I just think anybody making any kind of app or Wi-Fi enabled device, if you are not building in a bunch of security, like what are you doing?
And it's security across the board, because to your point, these apps, for it to work, it's enabled through Bluetooth. There is an app. And so when you have a device like this,
so that's
not
three
the
different
actual
points of
cellmate
connection that it can be messed with?
Yeah. And without not talking about the cellmate itself, but the API also was faulty and was potentially giving out information about people's kind of habits. So like location data, not encrypting passwords, things of that nature. And so I think it's part of there are a lot of benefits, and I would just say that broadly about technology for pleasure, certainly at a time when people are encouraged to be safe far away with respect to human contact. There are some downsides that you want to be thinking about next time you go to the store, online, or in person, with what you're going to be putting around your penis and who has control of it.
I'm just more and more glad that I don't have a penis.
Would you use this?
I'm glad that you like it and everything, but like, wow,
like it.
I'm so glad I don't have one.
Would you use this with a partner?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
it's a lot of responsibility. It's like the same reason why I don't run for sheriff. I don't want to be responsible for locking people up.
You're my least favorite sometimes, but that was
Allen,
really, really good.
Let's transition. Smooth segue. The ozone layer. I know that was bad. Smooth. I'll work on it. Our last story this evening. Speaking of holes. We didn't.
You tried there. I like that.
Well, but I also just realized I should have said that. It's not like I didn't take thousands of dollars worth of improv classes. Maybe 1,000. How much was it? Probably like $1,500 worth of improv classes.
You were certainly the professional between the two of us when it comes to improv.
So, speaking of holes, did you know that October is the time of year when the ozone layer in the Earth's atmosphere becomes the widest? Sorry,
let me read my line. No.
I didn't either. You put this topic in our bullpen for today, and I do just have to say, it is crazy to me. I have no take on this. No, not even, this is not like climate change. I have no take on this. The take that I have is, holy moly.
That's huge.
The ozone layer has a season.
Yeah. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Yeah.
Well, this time of year is normally when the ozone layer is the biggest. And womp womp, bad news. This October, it is at, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a sex reference. I'm going to stop because it's not going to be pretty. The headline here for this Earther piece is, this year's hole in the ozone is twice the size of the United States. And it's much more so than what we've had in the past. So it is a total of 8.8 million square miles. It sits directly over Antarctica, and it is considered one of the largest and deepest ozone holes in recent history. Whoa. Now, I was coming to the story, too, off of the understanding that we had actually made some headway here. Alan, did you have that feeling as well? That, not that the ozone hole was a thing of the past, but that we had sort of been on our way to closing this gap.
Goodness, before climate change was a real thing, and heck, global warming. I remember being in school, in elementary school, and hearing about the ozone layer is a problem. We need to get it together now because everyone's going to be radiated and it's going to be bad news, and you just better stick your head in the microwave because it's over. Yeah. And then I thought we did a decent job as we then polluted other parts of the environment. But Whitney, we're coming off of a situation where we had a relatively small hole in the ozone layer last year, but apparently it fluctuates. And the hole is created based on what we use to cool things, like air conditioners and things of that nature, refrigeration. The chemicals that are given off kind of depletes the ozone. And, insert all of the Al Gore inconvenient truth images of, infrared lights coming in and it's bouncing back off. And we needed to make sure we're not radiated. And it's sort of staggering to think about. And obviously, given that it's in over Antarctica, and the importance of that section of ice to reflect so much sun back up, you know, it's not surprising that in this hell year that we're living in, where, you know, superstorms are all over the place, people aren't taking climate change seriously, that now the ozone layer is back as another thing to worry about. And not just another thing, but at a historically high, large hole size for October. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it does certainly feel like that. I think also, and we'll link to this piece again, but it does look like the overall outlook towards the ozone layer and ozone depletion in general is actually fairly good. So the 1980s was really where we saw the massive dip in CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, again, which are the particles that really contribute a lot to this depletion. To your point, like when light hits the atmosphere, it sort of engages with these chemicals and just creates like a hole. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. So, you know, we really have been on a downward bend since then. And this fluctuation might actually be much more due to weather patterns than it is particularly to the use of these CFCs. But we are by no means out of the woods. It's still really, really dependent on us to change behavior in order to make this kind of thing happen. So something that you were talking about, like these refrigerants, you know, they're old refrigerators just sitting in people's backyards from years and years and years ago that have cracks in these tanks, and the refrigerants start leaking out into the atmosphere. Those refrigerants are something like 10 times worse than methane. So it is incredibly important, I think, that we start being serious about it. But this is definitely not one of the, oh my God, 2020 is the worst and the world is ending kind of stories. I think this is ultimately like, we are on the right track. We need to do more and we need to do it faster. But yeah, we're not all going to burn up right now.
Hope not. I mean, well, we'll get there sooner or later, after the election. But I just, when I saw it, it was just one of these staggering things of just like the ozone layer.
Yeah.
We were healing it until we weren't. So there's that.
Yep. So that sucks.
What a down note to sort of end on.
I got a worse one.
Do tell, Whitney Caps. Do tell.
So now is the time in the show where we talk about things that we recommend. I lamented last week that my recommender wasn't weird enough, that it was pretty straightforward. What did I talk about last week? Hoopla? What did I talk about?
No, you didn't talk about
the weird gross comic that I was talking about, where people's body parts grow on trees.
Yes, and you showed just incredibly uncomfortable things.
Well, again, and I wonder why you think it's weird that I'm into true crime when I'm like super into anything creepy.
I'll be alone with you.
I just need to preface the story just a little bit. So, Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiques hosted a gathering this past week to share an incredible find of dozens of intact coffins at Saqqara. I have no idea if I'm saying that right.
Absolutely.
Do you think so?
Yeah, 100%. It's called confidence. I got your back.
I love it. I just feel like Arabic is a lot of hard consonants. Like you just have to go in, like really landing on those consonants. So these intact coffins have been estimated to be sealed for 2,500 years.
Yeah.
And so they decided to open them.
Oh, yeah.
So my recommendation to the Egypt Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities is to not open them.
Oh, come on. Why not?
Alan?
You want to learn?
Alan, I do want to learn. I also don't want a room full of people to be cursed.
Yeah, well.
Okay? Because that's what happens when you open mummy sarcophagi. You are not supposed to do that. Also, I do think it's a little bit creepy because like these are dead people. And like if I'm dead, I'm not trying to have a bunch of like, I do not want weird people looking at me after I die. I just want to get burned up and then thrown in the backyard. That's it. That's it. I just think it's very creepy. Like even on a real for serious note, I think it's really creepy to just be like looking at dead bodies of other people.
Even if they're unlike today, well, it makes you think about will there be people 400 years from now that
looking
will
at
be
your dead
opening
body?
up? Well, no one's going to be looking at my dead body. Let me just tell you that right now. But like, they'll dig up these graves and they'll see, wow, these folks were buried with like fancy suits on and, things that mattered in their rings, and the body's been decomposed. I mean, it would be just gross, but it would be like, oh, look at these things that they were buried with. This is
Well, I
so
think it's
interesting.
less gross because mummification allows for less putrefaction.
Which is incredible
The gooey stuff.
as its own thing.
Yeah, I think they just sort of become jerky. They're very desiccated and brittle.
Jerky.
A lot of dust, I imagine.
Well, it's ashes to
Dust
ashes.
is human skin. But yeah, I mean, I get it. It is a necessary thing that we have to do. We need to learn from the past. We can learn a lot from even just the graves of regular people, not just leaders. Sometimes it's actually way more cool what archaeologists are able to find from the grave sites and the living sites of just regular folks. But don't open the coffin. There is absolutely a curse on that. You're all gonna die. That's it.
I will say, statistically, you are 100% correct that people that have opened coffins have always ended up dead at the end. And I don't think that's a coincidence, okay? And I'm just saying, you do raise a fantastic
That's
point.
right.
I haven't opened up a single
coffin.
Open a
coffin, you're going to die one day. Hot take.
And I'm taking that to the grave. Jesus. I have a recommendation.
Please, Alan, what do you recommend?
That's frightening. Injustice Watch has, and this is specific to people in Cook County, and Chicago is in Cook County, but Injustice Watch has released their November 2020 Cook County Judicial Election Guide, which is something that's incredible. Injustice Watch, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan journalism organization. Does a lot of research, exposes institutions for their shortcomings around justice and equality. And not just for the people of Cook County, though you should use this, but anyone listening, many places, judges are up for retention. And unlike the campaign season, which we ignore, there's not a lot of campaigning around judges. No one really is paying attention to what they're ruling on and where to find information.
You're just looking at what your neighbor's yard signs say.
Seriously.
Like, I think I heard Linton. Yeah, okay. I guess he's fine.
Well,
I guess I would vote for you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, bud. But not for judge. That'd be a terrible decision. I don't even like jurisprudence. But it's important for people to be aware of what people are up to and their organizations that are watching these folks and can easily and quickly communicate. Should you be supporting them, and not just looking at bar association recommendations, which is a good first start, but thinking about, are they overly punitive for certain communities, or do they have a history as people that are not as kind or inequitable in their sentencing? So for people in Cook County, Injustice Watch, use it as you're going to vote. And for those kind of watching beyond Cook County, find organizations within your cities and counties that are paying attention to judges.
That's a great recommendation.
Well, I think we both had strong things. Both of them really are thinking about livelihood, sustaining livelihood, growth, respect for others, respect for ourselves.
Breaking generational curses.
Absolutely. Knowledge growth. But within reason.
I appreciate it, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We should do a election special.
On a podcast delay?
I don't know. Maybe we should talk to Mike and see if they want to partner up to do a live show.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. We'll talk about it. I just had that idea.
Let's file it away. That would be nice. And listen, if you want us to do this, it's always great to hear your support for this. Let us know. splitthediff@gmail.com. And you can always get in touch with us on Twitter at splitdiffcast.
Alan. You can get in touch with Alan.
I have it on my phone.
But if you ask Alan to ask me something, he will ask me.
Absolutely. And it'll go
if you want to know what's a really good true crime podcast to listen to.
You are a go-to expert on that and many other things.
It's true.
Remember, Be careful with your chastity cages.
Be very careful. Don't give that password out to everybody.
No. Make sure Moose is happy, and we'll get at you next week.
He's happy.
Ew. Don't do that.
I don't
It's a
actually
dog.
talk to him like that.
Okay, thank goodness. That'd be
Okay,
disturbing.
bye.
Ciao.